Hello again. Sometime last year, I began in earnest to frenetically and indiscriminately gobble up large numbers of Bible translations wherever I could find them, at my local thrift, at Goodwill, Facebook Marketplace, wherever I could find them. And I got the notion that picking up Bible translations in parallel Bibles might be a more efficient way to get the maximum number of translations in the smallest number of books or the lowest number of inches of shelf space. This was especially true for some Bible translations that I wasn't able to find in a single volume. Of course, I realized pretty quickly that this wasn't the most efficient method at all. Uh, Somehow now I ended up with multiple copies of the King James Version in several parallel Bibles. And while I do like to compare new versions that I haven't experienced before against the King James Bible, do I really need multiple copies of the King James for that purpose? Wouldn't it be more efficient just to open one of the several King James Bibles I already own next to whatever translation I'm comparing it against? And that all important shelf space that I was so eager to preserve by getting a parallel Bible, well, that was now taken up with multiple copies of various translations. So my quest to be more efficient actually worked out to be exactly the opposite. Not only was I misguided in my assumption of the efficiency of parallel Bibles for the primary intended purpose, um, they really aren't very useful for other purposes for which you use your Bible. Can you imagine taking it to church? For one thing, it's a big, heavy volume you really want to lift with your legs and not your back when you pick one of them up. Um, they're bulky and awkward to carry, and as shallow as this sounds, they're rather on the unattractive side. Plus, thinking logically about this, how many times am I comparing more than one Bible translation at a time? More than two, one against another. Um, Turns out not that often. And not to pick on any particular translation, but how useful is it going to be to me to compare how the NIV compares against the Message when I'm not a huge fan of either of those translations, just to be honest. Thankfully, I have very little wrapped up monetarily in parallel Bibles. I believe two of them I got free at Goodwill stores, and one I paid 50 cents for at a Mennonite thrift. And here's a thought that sort of makes my stomach turn a bit, but may in fact be true. Maybe this is one of those areas where an electronic device is just better at something than a book. Comparing translations is much easier on your smartphone than it is in a big, bulky parallel Bible. Maybe I'm missing something obvious here. Maybe you found parallel Bibles to be very useful. If so, I'd like to hear in what way. You can comment below. I'd like to read about it. Thanks for joining me today. Maybe I'll see you again here next time.